Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to complain on this at this time. Why would I do that?
I don't know. There's lots to complain about in the world.
Well, you know, I don't have things that I'm going to complain about.
Oh,
things are fine.
How
about you? Are you going to complain to me?
I got nothing to complain about. Life is good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm having some batch 22 right now.
You're having batch 22. I came up with a new drink with the batch 22. I actually came up with the name for the drink, but now I have to come up with the recipe. I know that the drink is going to have Benedictine,
right,
and batch 22. I'm not sure what the other ingredients will be. I'll taste those two mixed together and then tweak it with whatever else it needs to lift it up. But the name of the drink with Benedictine and batch 22, we make a version of the batch 22 that is a cucumber infusion where you pour it over some cut up cucumber and let it sit for a day. And
sounds tasty.
It's very good. The cucumber batch 22 is very good. So the drink is called the Benedictine cucumber batch.
That I love. I love that.
Or the Benedictine cucumber batch.
Even better.
Yes.
Even better.
And if it's a tasty drink, we'll see if Benedict wants to.
Maybe he'll do an ad.
Maybe he'll just taste the drink and tell us how honored he is to have a drink named after him. It would be even better if his you know what I have to do? I have to mention that Mom should put her headphones on because I'm also listening to the show right now. Because she's downstairs watching the show, but I'm hearing the show, but delayed. So yeah. I can't even hear myself think.
I can't hear it, but I'm sure you can.
But she'll hear me talking about that, and she'll go.
Yeah, you don't even have to leave the room.
I don't even have to leave the room. I just told her.
Unless this is going to be a good indication of whether she actually watches the show or just has it playing there, so you think she is.
So that I think she's watching.
Because I would right now, I'd be like out in the car listening to some radio.
Hey, if I didn't have to be here, I wouldn't listen to me if I didn't have to.
Did she seem to lower the volume? Did she get the?
She either lowered the volume or put her headphones on.
Okay, thank you, Mom. Appreciate that.
I'm not hearing us anymore. Speaking of Mom, there's a big day coming up.
There's a big day coming up.
There's a big day coming up, and I couldn't figure out what the heck to get her, so I went to this place that just does like themed boxes. Like you say, it's Mother's Day. What do you got? And they put together a themed box of stuff. I have no idea what's in it.
You have a very casual relationship with her right now. You say things very that's like you tell her that you kind of threw stuff in a box for Mother's Day. She's listening to you right now.
Well, because here I didn't do that. I got her something, but she knew that she had to hide so I could bring the box in, and she was wondering what's in that box. And I said, I have no idea. I went to a place that just said, we have Mother's Day gift boxes, and I got one. So that's what I told her. So I'm talking quietly so she doesn't hear this part of the show. So that's what she thinks. She thinks it's just like a themed gift box.
I didn't want to have to say this, but you really do need to start getting out more. You've been vaccinated. There's no excuse for this.
Yeah, there's a lot of my behavior that there's no excuse for. So have you been watching anything good lately? I believe you have.
I watched something good for this week, and
did you watch The Mayor of Easttown?
We've been watching that show for sure. Yeah, we are there. A new one drops today or yesterday. We haven't seen the third episode.
Sunday night. It drops on Sunday nights. Mom and I just watched it right before this broadcast, so I can tell you all about it if you want to know what happens.
I don't want you to do that.
Okay.
I would like to be able to experience the show for myself because I really, really like it. I really like it a lot.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
It's just terrific. It's well done, well acted. It's so well shot. It's great. She's amazing. She's amazing on it.
Yeah.
That's not an easy accent to do for people from the Northeast.
No, it's not an easy accent for people to do who live in that town. I'll bet.
Yeah, it's really it's amazing.
Yeah,
you think it's flawless. That's a hard accent.
It's a hard accent, and they're all drinking Leinenkugels. So that's a.
I don't know. You lost me.
That's the beer from that part of Pennsylvania.
Oh, I thought those were Rolling Rocks.
Leine's. Yeah, pretty good.
That wasn't Rolling Rock she was drinking.
I'm pretty sure they're mostly drinking Leinenkugel in there. Maybe in one scene she was drinking a Rolling Rock.
That's a Pennsylvania beer, right?
Yeah, Old Latrobe.
Old Latrobe.
Yeah, it's a good beer. So
I haven't had a Rolling Rock in a long time. That's a nice light beer. It's very light.
It's
almost not there
if you're playing ball, which I never do. So
you never drink it.
How would I know?
You just don't drink it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so we wanted to get away from rom-coms.
We got pretty far away,
and we ended up with another rom-com though.
There's a different way.
In this,
there is actually an unexpected relationship develops.
Yeah, with some humor.
Yeah, and a touch of sensuality.
And actually one really great shot.
I'll argue there's more than one in here.
No, but I mean in the rom-com part of it, there's one really, really great shot. But let's get to that.
I'm anxious to hear which one
what shot I love so much. Yeah. It's a shot that I loved when I first saw this movie, and I still laugh about it, and I laughed about it this time I saw it. But let's tell people what the movie is.
Wolfgang Petersen. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, you go. You go.
It was just a Pavlovian response. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
In the Line of Fire, 1993, directed by our favorite director of Enemy Mine,
Wolfgang Petersen. Just covered Enemy Mine, yeah.
Yeah, which we just did.
I think in a wheelhouse that's much more his.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. And the storyline is our hero, Clint Eastwood, is the oldest living Secret Service agent, and was on duty and right by the limousine when JFK was shot, and has lived with that from that day to this day in 1993, wondering if he hesitated, wondering if there was something he could have done to save the president. And along comes another crazy guy who wants to kill the president in 1993, and it's Clint's shot at redemption, and a battle of wits between him and this assassin who forms some sort of weird bond with him.
And it's apparently the only movie that the Secret Service actually got behind and helped out the making of.
Yeah, I think they may have done one since then, but this was the very first time they ever decided to cooperate. And it shows. It really shows.
I think it does. I mean, with my limited experience in being around Secret Service, which was, let me just remind you, when I met the President of the United States, who was then just the Vice President of the United States.
Just the Vice President.
When I hung out with him.
Yes, when you
on a job, hanging out like you do.
Yeah.
I got to see some of the Secret Service guys up close and personal.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, they hated me so bad. They hated me so much. I mean, there were 3 guys in that small room. We were in a tattoo parlor in DC, in like kind of a collegey, stoner part of town, a lot of bars and head shops and stuff, and a tattoo parlor, and we were crammed in here. They didn't like being in that neighborhood. They didn't like the store. They didn't like the layout. They just clearly didn't like anything, and they really didn't like me. They
You're covered in tattoos.
covered in tattoos. I'm close, but you just feel like they're trained to do that. They just don't like you, and there's no reason to like you, and they're just not gonna goddamn like you, and this is not part of their job.
Right.
Their part of the job might be killing you later that day if they think that there's anything that you're doing even remotely messed up.
And then didn't you have to pick up something called a gun and approach the vice president with it?
I did. It was really terrifying. I was well aware that they didn't like me. They were staring me down like the bikers in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It was literally like that level of, we got our eye on you, man. And I had to pretend to tattoo the president with what they call a tattoo gun, which is a very heavy, sharp object. It's not a gun per se, but it's electric and it's heavy, and you could really hurt somebody with it. And so I had to pretend to do it, which meant the vice president's bare arm is right in front of me, and I'm supposed to like pretend to do it, but they've not rehearsed it because he doesn't have time to rehearse. So I have the tattoo gun, and I don't have it yet. I'm like, they're like, let's do rehearsal. I'm saying, okay. I'm just so people know, I'm gently picking up the tattoo device. I didn't call it a gun at the time.
Oh, you did not call it a gun?
I'm holding it in my right hand as I'm like literally like explaining everything I'm doing to them because I'm so terrified. I'm approaching the vice president. I'm getting closer to his bare arm. I'm going to touch him now. The whole thing. It was very strange. They were just staring at me like,
yeah. I've never spent time. I've been around a lot of different kinds of folks, and a lot of different law enforcement. Never been around a Secret Service dude.
Well, I mean unless you've hung out with a president, there'd not be a lot of reasons to actually meet one.
No, there wouldn't.
You know, you want to hear, well, you may know this, but this is just reminds me because I hung out with Secret Service people at another time in my life.
Really?
Yes. When I was but a baby child, but a tiny child. Do you know you remember what I'm referring to by any chance?
No.
Remember Pop was doing a play in Washington, and we were I don't know if you were there or not, but I know I was there staying at the Watergate Hotel.
Okay.
During the freaking break-in.
Oh, yes. No, I wasn't there. I was at boarding school.
So I don't remember. I mean,
yeah, I was at boarding school.
Break-in was what, 73?
It was the 72 election.
72 election.
So the break-in would have happened in 72 or late 71.
So, I was like 4 years old.
Yeah.
And literally some of my earliest memories are like I was starting to like really capture memories at that age, I guess, and are of these guys in dark suits and overcoats and talking into their stuff, and like just that I remember the flurry. Sorry, that wasn't what they were doing. That's I do another show and sometimes I get confused.
You get confused.
Talking into their wrists, handset monitor things,
right?
And just super serious. And they didn't like us then either. They didn't like anybody they saw then.
No, well, you were covered with tattoos at 4, also.
Yeah, I was.
They washed off, but
they were
like Wacky Racer cartoons.
These are the real deal. These tattoos.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Weird, really weird. So I've hung out with these guys. They're cool guys. They have a really hard job.
They do have a hard job. It's interesting because watching this film, also my earliest memory is or one of my very earliest memory, and the first time I ever saw my biological mother cry was I was 3.5. And I remember her coming into the living room sobbing, and I had never seen her, crying and wrecked, and it frightened me. And I said, and she looked at me and she said, "The president's been shot. He was the greatest man who ever lived." And that was Kennedy's assassination. And then I just remembered days of sitting quietly with people. You know, I had, of course, I had no concept of what was going on, other than that it was very serious, and all of the grown-ups were wrecked.
Yeah, it was clearly an upsetting time,
yeah.
which is really well evoked in this movie, I think.
I
not
think
it's not even really a recreation, but the legacy of it is really well.
And it adds if I can use the word, a gravitas.
Sure.
To the entire film, and actually informs what I think in a lot of ways is really one of the best moments in the movie, and certainly one of the best moments I think Clint Eastwood has ever had.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Didn't know he had waterworks. Didn't know that could happen.
No, he pulls that monologue off about what that day was like for him so incredibly, and the way it boils down to just a personal experience for him rather than some epic epic world shaping event,
and you know, of a moment of failure too. Interesting movie that deals with that grief and loss and failure, and in a big action thriller from Hollywood. You know, it's a little bit surprising to see that those chords being played.
Well, let's get into a little. I think
can I stop for just a second while we're talking about the real stuff? Though that this is apparently a real guy too. This is based on the real person.
Yeah, the real guy who did an interview or several interviews, some that I believe you can still watch on YouTube.
I haven't seen him, but he breaks down talking about how
I haven't. I have to confess that I didn't watch the clips. I want to go watch them now that I learned about them today.
Is that because you were too busy doing the other homework that you had to do for the show, or was that?
Yeah, okay. I had so much homework to do for the show.
I understand. I didn't learn. I actually didn't even know this until a couple of hours ago, and I was like, oh my god, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah.
This plot didn't happen.
No, this plot didn't happen, but that there was a guy there. I mean, obviously there were a lot of Secret Service men there who, when Kennedy was died, but when Kennedy was died,
yeah. I know what you meant. That's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, he's actually still he's gonna be Vice President Kennedy when Trump becomes president again on what is it? It's gonna be May 28th now. What's the date now that he's?
I don't follow that story in the news anymore.
You don't follow the Q stuff. You're not into.
Don't follow it anymore.
Yeah, no, me neither.
It's not in my feed, and I don't seek it out. Okay. So there you go.
All right. But, you know, this film, I think is, I was talking to Mom about it because at first I thought, I don't know what the heck we're going to talk about tonight, because this movie in some ways is like if somebody said to you, bake me a perfect, simple chocolate cake, right? And then somebody baked you a perfect, simple chocolate cake and you tasted it and you go, okay, yeah, it's a perfect chocolate cake. I don't know what else to say about it. You baked exactly what I wanted.
Except for those gosh darn Dermot Mulrooney nuts that they keep on putting in the cake. I hate those Mulrooney nuts. They don't go with this cake. I don't know what it is. Sorry.
Isn't it Mulrooney? I thought it was Dylan McDermott.
No, it's Dylan McRooney. Sorry,
Dylan,
who is it?
It's Dylan McDermott.
Right. I've always confused these two actors.
Well, they should combine them into one actor, Dylan McDermott Mulrooney.
Well, I think I may be more sympathetic to one of the McDermonts than the other one, but I don't.
You're not a fan of Dylan McDermott in this movie?
For me, honestly, that whole part of it is the weakest link in the movie. It seems like the only really just kind of tropish thing that just went exactly the way you think it's going to go.
Except without that storyline, you could not have this line. When Clint goes to her, and after he's been kicked off the case, and he goes to Rene Russo, who's the lead agent on security for this convention or whatever, and says, you got to send me there because, you know, and they've had a little bit of a thing, and she gives him a look, and he says, "This has nothing to do with you and me, strictly professional. But that son of a bitch killed my partner, my friend." And you couldn't have that line, and you gotta have that line.
I don't disagree. I think you need
gotta have that line in the movie.
I just think that they could have had that line and arrived at it in a slightly more interesting way. The minute you meet him, you know, like he's the first thing in the movie. He's the first shot of the film after the credits, and you know he's going to die the second he shows up.
Yeah. Really? You knew he was going to get killed?
I did.
They might as well have put a Star Trek red shirt on him.
Yeah.
That's what he should have been wearing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was weird that he was like a white person. I was like, he's you know he's going to die. Like, that's so surprising.
Right. Yeah.
He's not going to make it through this movie. And you know the second he shows up. And then he has a scene after that where you're like, oh, you're really gone. Okay.
You mean because he talks about his wife?
Yeah, he talked about his wife and his kid.
And how, guaranteed to die. Yeah, don't.
Maybe that's what made me uncomfortable. It's like I just didn't want to get to know him because I knew I was just going to be grieving more once I got to know him and invested in it.
Yeah, but think how much more upset you would have been if it was if it was Dermot Mulroney.
Then I might have had I might have actually been upset. I don't know. Yeah. I didn't love that part of it. Did you feel that this was a weak thread of the film, despite that it had to be there for, you know, your favorite narrative reasons, your plot and narrative,
plot and story. Yeah, I loved the almost every single thing in this movie is inevitable from the moment of this movie is like dominoes, right?
Yeah.
And you could almost sit in the audience and write the next scene as it was going on. It's the political assassination equivalent of when we did the poster, things that are in Silverado.
Yeah, is. It's the Washington thriller version of Silverado.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
But it does a couple of things I thought incredibly well. Like, I love the fact that the president is purely a plot device in this movie.
Loved it.
He's cast like a plot device. They cast a guy who hardly ever worked before or since.
Jim Curley.
Yeah, he's got like 4 IMDb credits.
Yeah. And Jim still talks about this movie. Anytime you go drinking with him, anywhere he goes, there's a story about this movie.
It was a big deal for him.
Obviously, he was in like half the movie and he doesn't have any lines. It's really amazing.
And that scene where the shot rings out and they have to hustle him out of that hotel.
I have it in my notes. It's one of my favorite things in it. Yeah.
Just insanely good.
So
good. And what you imagine it would be like, you know, just a mass of men moving a terrified person through a crowd, through a kitchen, through an underground garage.
Yeah. It goes on and it's crazy. That whole sequence is fantastic. I mean, that whole thing is fantastic. There are like 3 action set pieces, you know, in this that really hold up. And this was from 93, 93.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Mission Impossible was just ramping up.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of movie if you're not familiar with this movie, because it's odd that in a way that you're seeing a Clint movie that's not even directed by Clint. You know, he's just cast in it as a star.
I think it might have been the last movie that he didn't direct or produce that he was in.
Is that true? It certainly seems like it could be. It worked on that timeline. He was 62 when he made it. 12 years older than the character was actually supposed to be, which is why he apparently almost turned it down when, he did turn it down at first because he said he was too old for it. But he is right in the middle of the action in this, and they have 3 like fantastic sequences, and that's one of them. Blew my mind.
Yeah, he takes that bullet. I mean, and that was old style. That was him flying, leaping and a squib. And I watched that. I clicked through it, and the look on his face and Gary Cole, who's behind him, it all looks really genuine. Let's hope Clint doesn't break a hip.
Yeah.
Let's hope this.
No, Gary Cole's like, I hope he does break a hip, because then I'm going to get paid so much money. Yeah. So, okay. Is there, you saw this when it came out?
I saw it when it came out, and I loved it then.
Did it change? Had you seen it since?
I believe I had seen it once a few years after it came out also.
I
loved it just as much now as I did
same thing. Time. Okay.
And there were so many pieces of it that I remembered.
Right. It's funny how time does stuff. I liked it. I really enjoyed it this time. I remembered it as being less. I guess since it came out, I've seen 700 million films since then.
Yes.
And I've seen a lot better movies since then.
Better than this?
And so it also, at the time, it was also really hard hitting. I remember it being like really a thrill ride. Yeah. Compared to today's thrill ride. It's a very slow paced kind of like charming drama about 2 people who fall in love at the White House. It's really amazing. But yeah, that sequence reminded me so much of like a Brian De Palma sequence with less showiness. But man, Wolfgang Petersen knows how to do some stuff. You know who else knows how to do some stuff? Just to bring it up, do you know who edited this movie?
Who edited it?
Just the woman who edited Lawrence of Arabia.
Holy Moses.
Yeah, Anne V. Coates edited this, and she is literally one of the greatest, filmmakers ever.
Well, I just got some bad news from our friend Seth Michael May, which I'll share in a moment. But it's bad news to me because I was just about to bring up Mr. Malkovich, who I think just shines in this movie. And it is a movie that's filled with tropes and sort of, there's so much about it that's standard. And then Malkovich brings this relationship in between him, and that's what makes the movie, gives the movie a little depth to me.
Totally agree.
That they juxtapose these 2 people who have loss in their past, who believed in this country and believed in the jobs that they were doing, and they juxtapose them, and they're like mirror images of each other. And they bring that up in dialogue, when he says, you're supposed to protect and I'm supposed to kill, and yet I protected you and you're trying to kill me. There's all those mirror images. But apparently, according to Seth Michael May, Malkovich hates this film. And yeah, I would agree with you, Seth. That breaks my heart, because I think his reserve through the entire film until that one moment when he breaks and loses his shit.
I love John Malkovich as an actor, but I gotta say that, Seth, that makes a kind of weird sense to me, because I remember when this movie came out, I feel like Malkovich considered himself to be like a fancy actor.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that he kind of made $1 million payday, big movie thing where it was kind of like the equivalent of playing a Bond villain, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
And I think even at the time, I remember being surprised that he was in it, you know, like, wow, it made me want to see it more. Cause I thought, wow, there's a really interesting, you know, like a really heavy hitting actor in one of these Hollywood action movies. It might make it really good. And it did. I'm just so surprised at that, Seth. I didn't know that, but I think he's so good in it. And I think how could you hate being in one of the better, you know, Clint Eastwood movies? Whatever you think about Clint, like this is one of the more interesting outings for him.
Yeah, and then the work that he did, and the character he created was incredibly compelling, and not a Bond villain. I mean, I thought he brought a lot of dimensions to it.
Oh, I agree. I didn't mean to imply that I thought it was, but the way that it was, I think he made it not a Bond villain.
Yeah, and that's why I'm sad that he's not proud of it. You know.
Yeah.
And this from the guy who then went off to do what was that series of movies with Bruce Willis, the deranged special, the crazy ex-CIA people.
You're making no sense right now. You're talking. Are you feeling okay?
It's Bruce Willis, Mary Louise Parker, ex-CIA guys who have to save the world. And
what, Red?
Yeah, Red and Red
too.
Again.
Yeah, but this is like, you know, this is years and years after, you know, I mean, he's coming off of Broadway and Burn This like 5 years before this. You know, he's like on fire as the new Brando.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry you had to go make $1 million.
Wow.
And even Brando did The Lady from Shanghai. So, you know.
Brando loved In the Line of Fire. I don't know what he's talking about.
He was crazy about it. There's so favorite moment.
My favorite moment, let me think about that for a second, because I have favorite scenes and stuff. I guess actually my favorite moment is in the middle of my favorite sequence, which is the rooftop chase.
Okay.
The rooftop chase is like, it's just fantastic. It's so well done and has so many other films that it's kind of referencing and stuff, but it has its own thing going on. I love that action scene. And there's a moment where there's a lot of really bad green screen or blue screen in this movie. They hadn't gotten to CGI really yet, and even if they had done it, it was all spent on like his transformation into a younger Clint when they do the documentary footage from the assassination. That cost $4 million,
10% of the budget right there.
So they didn't have a lot of money to have like really good green screen work. There's some stuff now that looks really, really bad, like when Air Force One is on the runway and there's a band of tuba players, and then there's like clearly it just looks like cuneiform cutouts like stapled onto it. But there's one shot in this, I think, because they knew they were doing a lot of green screen and a lot of sleight of hand. The rooftop stuff they wanted to sell as real, you know, because they were really up there. And at first you're thinking, well, Clint's against, he's hanging off the edge of a building. He jumps, tries to make the cross, and he doesn't, and he's hanging off the side of the building. Classic movie moment. And you're assuming that when they cut to that high angle and they're looking down at him and you see the street, you're assuming that that's green screen. Yeah. Because of course it's Clint, and it's clearly if he's got a harness, it's not the biggest harness you've ever seen, because you can't see it.
Can't see it. No.
And they didn't have the technology to like airbrush things out of movies at that point. So you're like looking at this, and then John Malkovich's sunglasses fall off, and they fall off in one shot, and they cut to the reverse, looking down at the street and at Clint, and they fall all the way down to the street and smash. And I'm like, oh my God, that's actually happening right now. So smart. a great gag pulled off perfectly and really smart movie making. I love that moment.
He was hanging there. He was hanging there. My favorite, because it just made me laugh, is I love when he goes into her hotel room and they kiss and they're going to end up in bed. The camera pans down to their feet as they're kissing and they're trying to make it to the bed, and we just see their feet, and it's handcuffs and guns,
clips from guns,
taser, billy club, walkie-talkie,
hitting the floor,
clunking on the just littering the floor on their way to the bed.
It's a great moment, man.
That moment.
It's kind of a riff on the We Don't Need Another Hero Mad Max movie.
Yeah.
It turns out we did need another hero, but where they're like, put all your weapons on the desk before you come into the bar, and it's like literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He's just pulling out like guns and rifles and knives and grenades. This is like forever. Right. It is a really funny moment.
Yeah. I also was really the sequence when Malkovich kills the woman from the bank and her roommate is
really good.
So that it's so terrifying when he shows up at her door. And again, they do that wonderful thing in the bank when she asks him where he's from, and he says Milwaukee, and obviously he's lying, and she goes, "Oh, I'm from Milwaukee," and you go, "Oh, she's gonna die.
She's dead." Oh, too bad.
Just horrible. And then when he kills the two hunters, it's
again, what's going to happen, and it's all about how he plays it and how the whole cast plays it. Let's give a little shout out to Patrick Adarbo, who plays the woman who he does kill, who he meets at the bank. Patrick Adarbo.
She's fantastic.
She has been working. She is like another person I'll bring up here, a character actor extraordinaire. You've seen her. It's just one of those people. You've seen her 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And she has been on TV forever, and she's still going strong. And I thought she was great in this. I really loved her work in that was a really memorable small role.
Yep.
Great job.
There's a couple of small, couple of people in here. Gregory Allen Williams.
Yep.
Is fantastic in it. William Schilling as the party hack, the we don't know, Democrat, Republican, that is never.
I loved him in this. He was so realistic. He was such that guy.
He's fantastic.
He reminded me of Dad's old manager, of Harold Leventhal, didn't he?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
completely. Clyde Kuzatsu.
I have him written down here. Talk about a guy who should be celebrated, who's also still working, just had stuff coming out last year.
I think he may have more IMDb credits than anybody I've ever seen.
I've never seen anything like it. I was scrolling down and down and down and down. And you're getting to Simon and Simon, Law and Order, the 2011 Hawaii Five-0, the original Hawaii Five-0. It's absolutely incredible.
There's very few people who can do both Hawaii Five-0s.
Yeah.
We can do both of them in our family.
Can you believe he was in the Rockford Files, Simon and Simon, not on Magnum. He's from Hawaii. What happened there?
Not on Magnum.
He was apparently never on Magnum. Maybe I missed it, but
that's sad. And John Mahoney.
John Mahoney, who didn't get enough to do in this movie at all.
No, but the guy's a national treasure.
And a great part for what's his name, Thompson, the guy who used to be the lawyer who became the actor, and then
Dalton Thompson.
Oh, he's so cool.
And then became a senator for a while.
Right, and continued to act. In erotic thrillers, which is a strange thing.
Yeah, he never really. Steve Railsback.
How great was it to see him show up? that's one of the cool things I think about having a European director, a German director, come and shoot something here, because the casting is maybe not exactly what you would. He's in love with actors that you wouldn't necessarily like. He clearly loves Steve Railsback, gave him a great role. Nobody knew who Steve Railsback was at that time. They still don't, which is a shame. I mean,
he had, at that point, I think almost all he had done was the stuntman, right?
No, he did Helter Skelter, which is why he never worked again.
That's right. But wasn't the stuntman the first thing he did?
It was the stuntman. No, I think Helter Skelter was the first thing he did. Stuntman was one of the only other things he did that he was really known for.
Okay.
But I love him. He's a great actor, and he got really. He's one of these guys that was so good as playing a creep. He was so good playing Charlie Manson that it was too good. People didn't want to work with him anymore.
And then there's John Hurd, who has really kind of just a thankless.
Great to see him, but what?
Yeah.
Why? Like that one seemed like he was like, well, I'll be in LA for a couple days. I'll do it. I was weird that he was in that.
Right. And then we have not mentioned really the only other woman in the movie.
And we're not gonna yet because she comes last after Gregory Allen Williams. So did you mention Gregory Allen Williams? You did. Okay.
Yep, he's terrific.
So now let's get to Rene Russo.
Okay.
I miss the 90s Rene Russo. I mean, I like to see her at all times, but she filled a special kind of niche for like women actors at that time.
Yeah.
Movie stars. I mean, I thought she was great, but she was such an interesting combination of, like, she played cops a lot and tough and like really tough ladies, but she was also, you know, a very believable romantic leading woman at the same time.
She was able to combine, I'm incredibly feminine, I'm incredibly beautiful, and I could break your nose in a bar fight, you know,
and would enjoy doing so.
She brought it.
She's great.
Yeah.
Totally believable as Secret Service. Really totally believable. And I think, you know what? Kudos to her. Kind of believable that she might fall for Clint.
Yeah.
At that age. Kind of almost believable.
In a way that wasn't, there was no shrinking violet. Oh, oh
no.
It was she fell for him as an equal. Which was one of the things I loved about the scene when that shot of them going to the bed, of sort of the weapons coming off, established that they work together and do, you know, it wasn't him having to take off his gun. You know, she's got every piece of weaponry that he does.
Yeah. I guess the only thing that hasn't truly aged well is the fact that he thinks, as the writers did, that his incredibly invasive and awful downspeaking to her and sexing it up at the meetings was funny. It's like, it's not funny. No. In today's context. Like, I remember seeing that in 1993 and being like, oh, you know, I mean, it's not the kind of humor that ever knocked me out, but it was at least something you thought like, well, I guess that's what it's really like in cop world and like tough guy land. And you're like, no, it's not. This would have been screechingly unacceptable then and now. It's just incredibly funny to me.
Yeah.
The things that he says to her that she's supposed to find like, oh, eye rolly, kind of like, oh, you.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Yeah. But for back then, they were probably.
You're having a little bit of a mic problem. I don't know if you can hear that on your end.
Oh no. Is it better now?
Now it's better, but you kind of go up into the upper registers. It gets like the gain goes up and then it.
Oh, that was me. Down. That was me. I was.
You were jockeying the gain.
I was getting very excited. No, because I want to share something about their relationship that I felt that they dealt with cinematically that was kind of fun, where the first time they get together, and he says, I've never worked with a female agent before, and he's trying to get her into bed, and we have this shot of the two of them and the Washington Monument. And I think the subtext is fairly clear.
I think it's pretty clear
what's going on in the shot. And then
it's also really funny when you realize they're being judged by Abraham Lincoln behind them during this shot.
Abraham Lincoln is looking at them like, come on, guys.
He's rolling his eyes. He's like, really?
Yeah.
This is the Washington really?
Yeah.
You're making a stupid sex joke out of the most important real estate in America right now.
And then at the end of the movie, after they've slept together, we get this. We get it again.
And we get probably the strangest closing line of a movie.
Oh, about the brown pigeon is gonna fly away before the white pigeon?
Yeah.
Was that a reference to the fact that we're together now, but I'm gonna die before you are because I'm the old brown pigeon and you're the young white pigeon?
Maybe. I thought it was. I mean, I know it's a callback to when he's on that same stairway early in the movie, and he bets quietly to himself, if she turns around, she likes me, she's interested, and she does turn around and wave to him or something. And so it's a callback to that line. But they see the brown pigeon and the white pigeon. I thought it was like, now he's retiring essentially, and he's just going to sit on a bench and watch pigeons. But then the last line of the movie is, I know things about pigeons, Lily.
Right. Because earlier in the movie, he says, I know. And maybe that's a reference to the retirement, because throughout the whole movie, he keeps saying, I know things about people.
He does say that, but I'm exactly. And it's a callback. It's a double callback, but I'm still confused as to why that would be.
Well, I mean, maybe he's saying, I'm going to stop knowing things about people now, and I'm going to start knowing things about people.
I think that this is an example of the famous Eastwood brand of humor. And I think he thought this was funny.
Talking to a chair.
And I want you to remember that it was Wolfgang Petersen, who was the director of the film, who may have shared similar kind of non-humor with Clint, and thought that was a funny way to end the movie, when in fact it's nonsense.
It is nonsense. Did you notice this? I'm going to share one other pair of photographs here. So here we have the first time we see Mr. Malkovich coming out of the shadows. We see his eyes for the first time. And the next time we see them on an airplane, did you notice anything?
You're going to try to make me look foolish. No. Did I notice anything? Well, they're different. They look different colors now.
Yeah. He's got colored contact lens. His eyes change color through the whole movie.
He changes disguises, and the disguises they're really actually well done. Believable. You believe he could do it too, which is the other thing I like. It was disguises that you think he actually really could have pulled off, as opposed to some, like the Mission Impossible stuff.
Mission Impossible peeling the face off.
No. I'm really surprised that he feels that. I got to look this up and see what he's saying about this movie, because I mean, if you know what you're doing, I mean, this is what you're getting in for. Like, it's a Clint Eastwood movie. However, it'd be interesting to know, actually, there could be one way to look at this where he gets off the hook.
Okay.
Do you know how many other people had been cast in the lead role, or had been who they wanted to cast the lead role, who was up for the role, or cast on it? Like everybody.
Yeah. I mean,
De Niro, Redford, Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. The list went on. and Clint got it late, and he was the one who tapped Wolfgang Petersen. So Petersen wasn't on board until Clint was on board.
Right.
I wonder if Malkovich had signed on early, hearing that people like De Niro were going to play this part, or maybe thinking about it.
Right.
And maybe signed a deal, and then it turned out that Clint was doing it, and that's why he was like, it's not the movie I thought it was going to be. Because this would be a very different movie with a De Niro type in it. It really would.
I thought there were other people who were considered for his role also.
I'm just trying to figure out why what he could be on about when he's negative about the movie, because I could understand. I mean, I could understand it not being your cup of tea, but it's a really great example of a big Hollywood action thriller, like with you know, arguably the only thing that I could see being a little embarrassed about is like his actual death, which isn't. They could do better today. They kind of tried to bite off more with that fall than they should have.
Tommy Lee Jones was considered for Clint Eastwood's role. Ed Harris was considered for Malkovich's role. Gene Hackman was considered for Clint's role. Wow. Pretty amazing.
I gotta say, you know, I'm glad Clint did this movie. There are actors out there who, you know, who I think are better actors, and there's certainly whose politics I guess I align with more. But I love his whole shtick. That's what it is. It's great shtick. It's amazing shtick, and it's put to great use in this movie. I think they actually kind of like. I think they kind of try to delve into that character a little bit more than the surface movie you usually get with a guy like that. You know, the fact that, you know, he's a piano player, and they use Clint actually being a piano player, and there's a lot of piano playing in it.
Yeah.
And he's like, they give a lot of time to his kind of like, you know, sly older guy trying to pick up a lady and stuff. It's like, you see his apartment. It's really the movie is really beautifully art directed, and he's like the various apartments that Malkovich lives in are really cool. Because did you notice this, that the apartments all match the costume, the personality he's in?
Yeah, it's very cool.
They're made. That was just so well done and elegantly done. It's really cool. The shooting is great. I mean, except for the process shots, which that just weren't really nailing. You know who shot the movie?
Who?
Interestingly, the same guy who shot Silverado. So there's connection there.
Oh, okay, interesting. Do you know the little bit of trivia about the guns in the movie?
No.
He in the first sequence on the boat when he's undercover, he's using a 44 Magnum, which is the Dirty Harry gun.
Right.
And then when he gets back to the Secret Service, he's using the Sig Sauer. I believe it's a Sig Sauer. Which is the Secret Service gun. And there are people who say that was a symbolic way of saying, I am done with I'm putting the Dirty Harry character away.
Awesome.
And moving on. And
awesome.
They say the same thing happens in Unforgiven, that he's saying goodbye to the spaghetti Western character.
Okay. Boy, well, that makes sense. I mean, they're both really great conclusion stories to those archetypes.
Yeah,
they really are. I mean, you'd want to see Dirty Harry calm the F down and just stop it and get married and like just go feed the pigeons for a while. You're fine. You're cool. Just get out of law enforcement.
Yeah, and he does.
And he does. And you know, and with Unforgiven, you know, he really shows you the underbelly of what these characters really always were.
Right.
You know, they were celebrated for being these cool gunslingers, but in reality, they were really just psychopathic drunks. You know,
Don't talk about my American heroes that way.
I'm talking about fictional characters, sir. They
Those
are
are the guys I
fictional.
want to hang out with.
They are fictional characters. Don't be upset.
I love those guys.
Oh, shout out to Ennio Morricone. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I missed him in the credits, and they got to the roof sequence, and I was like, oh, someone's trying to rip off some Morricone. It's like the Untouchables, and I think this literally was like
the Untouchables without the sax. It's like they removed the saxophone and used the same music. I think for the one sequence.
The rooftop sequence is the same concept musically as the Untouchables. Exactly.
Yeah.
But he was always repurposing music anyway.
Speaking of rooftop sequences in the Untouchables.
Yeah. Classic, great one.
That's a great rooftop sequence.
Godfather 2.
Yep.
One of the greats. Killer's Kiss. There's probably some I'm forgetting. Oh wait, isn't there one in A Blast of Silence?
I think so.
It should be.
Another great line. Another one of my favorite lines in this movie.
What was that?
Malkovich's line where he's talking about why people die, and he says some die simply because they're from Minneapolis. And I mean, it ends up being a clue, but it's a great line.
It's great.
It's a great line. And the worst line in the movie: "Stop this cockamamie shit now, would you? Come on, pal, I need you." But then they redeem it. They redeem it by him
talking about it.
By him saying that's a really stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a one funny line that I feel like they put in because again the comedy stylings of Clint and Wolfgang, not what I would call the tightest.
That's a show I would go see. The comedy stylings of
Clint and Wolfgang. After they undress and are gonna make it, and then she gets the call and has to go to work, and they've taken all their stuff off, and he's like lying back on the bed, and he ad-libbed this line on one take, and he says, I gotta put all this shit back on again. It's like it's funny.
Maybe he wasn't ad-libbing. Maybe he thought they'd cut. And he was saying
but it didn't look like it looked like either an ad lib or something that they kept in the movie because it was kind of off for what it was great because it was kind of like, I don't care.
Or maybe he actually said it after they cut on one take and they were like, ooh,
put it in.
Let's say it again. Yeah. Nice. Any other favorite moments or least favorite moments?
My least favorite moment involves Kermit Dunleavy. Is that who he is?
Yeah, Kermit Dunleavy. Yeah.
There is a moment in it that is legit awful, terrible filmmaking. Don't know what happened. It was literally like Trauma Studios, like people broke in to Ann Coates' room and started editing for a minute and then were kicked out. It's actually the moment of Kermit Dunleavy's death. Kermit is shot in the head by John Malkovich and he falls down on the roof and we can't see him because he falls down and behind a balustrade behind the top of the building.
Right.
And then they cut to Clint and he's going, Kermit, where are you, Kermit? Are you all right? And then they cut to the wall of the building and Kermit Dunleavy just goes, huh, like Ben Gardner's head in Jaws. He has a bullet hole in his head. You see it in his head. And he manages to lunge up onto the balustrade, onto the roof ledge, just to appear there and then fall
Well,
down.
that happens sometimes. Your body goes through spasms after, like a chicken running around with its head cut off.
That's how you know that and all that gun stuff, because you were one of these guys, right?
Yeah. There's an actor who I am ashamed to say neither one of us has mentioned, who is spectacular all the time.
Okay, make a fool of me. Let's do it.
No, I forgot him too. Tobin Bell.
Oh, well, I was at, you know what? Yes, I was
at
the beginning. I had a little spiel about the beginning of the movie where I was going to talk about Tobin, who I always love to see Tobin Bell.
Oh, he's spectacular.
So authentically, fantastically creepy and great. And I was going to talk about that sequence because I love it, because it's like a fantastic ripoff on To Live and Die in L.A., which is like the same beginning of the setup of the movie. I didn't realize, first of all, that Secret Service people did other things than just protect the president, run alongside the car. So that was cool to learn that he's on a case involving counterfeit money, and he's going to make a drop and meet a guy down by the water, and they're going to get into a boat and have a little espionage thing. That surprised me, because I honestly didn't know that. Did you know that Secret Service did other stuff?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, don't make the face, man. Don't do that.
No. The face was, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say I knew that.
But you didn't know it.
But I'm going to say that I did.
Okay, I'm glad. I'm glad one of us has their wits about them.
Yeah. If you had asked me, I would have said that ATF or Treasury agents do that.
Me too. I never
said.
Yeah. But I guess I'm wrong, because they helped out with this movie.
And they probably would have said, we don't do that.
I gotta say about this sequence, love Tobin Bell. The writing falls apart. Casting was weird. There is no planet wherein where Clint is anything but a cop. Like, he's not. Tobin Bell comes with, he's like, about this other guy, I don't really trust him, and I always have an instinct. And he's standing next to a guy that's like the most cop you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Him trying to be undercover bad guy. Clint doesn't even try. He doesn't even begin to try.
No.
And that's where I was like, I'd kind of like to see De Niro's version of this, like a 93 De Niro doing this movie would have been cool.
Yeah.
But for a 62-year-old dude, he does pretty good.
He does pretty good.
I liked almost thinking, like, watching Kermit think he was going to die was awesome. They did that back in the 90s in movies. They'd play chicken with people's lives and be like, ha, 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 I was kidding. I knew the guy. I didn't know how many bullets in it.
Yeah. Kermit Dunleavy. Wow, you're throwing some shade at Kermit.
I'm not. What am I doing? I'm just saying I didn't think this was a great part. This wasn't a great. The role was. It was it was ridiculous. It was a terrible part of the script.
Okay.
It shouldn't have. It should have.
Cockamamie.
It was cockamamie. It was really bad. What wasn't bad was a lot of the new spy stuff that they had in it. New CIA stuff, like the plastic molded gun, which was the first time anybody had seen that in a movie.
Yeah, and they had to destroy it after the movie.
Did they?
Yeah, they had to destroy it because it was they were like, can't keep that around. Danger.
I don't blame them. It was actually that was unnerving. Now everybody's seeing those things because they have, like 3D printed stuff that can make
it in your basement or your living room if you want.
But that was really creepy and interesting. It's so weird, man. Why did Malkovich not like this?
I don't know. I'm very upset.
If he didn't like it, it meant he didn't like the original script, because he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Come on.
He also apparently he improvised the moment where he puts his mouth on the gun.
Yes.
And Clint cracked up. And
I read that. Yeah.
That's fun.
I love that they use these things in it. Clearly there was they were having some fun on the set,
It did
riffing.
look
And
like that's the other thing about this movie is it looks like they enjoyed the hell out of making this movie.
it does. It looks fun.
Yeah.
It looks fun. I mean, how could it have not have been fun to have that kind of access to Washington? Because I'm sure, I don't actually remember where it was shot. I know some of it was probably shot in LA, but a good portion of it was in DC, I'd imagine.
A lot of those exteriors.
And having that support from the Secret Service, doing something that had never really been done before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool. Honestly, like, this is, of all the branches of, jobs where you get to shoot at people and be a badass, this is a pretty good recruiting video. Like, it seems like of all those gigs, this is one that's just like, basically like, just protect this guy. There's no shenanigans. Just look after this guy and you'll be good. They're like samurai, I guess.
They are. Yeah.
And then, which made me surprised there haven't been a lot more movies about that
About the Secret
that
Service
world.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting world. All right. Well, I've covered my notes here.
I've covered the waterfront. I think we've done a nice job.
Well,
this is a wonderful movie to pair with some barbecue. It's a nice summer film. Little barbecue, Gewürztraminer, maybe with that, like a light, sweet German wine to celebrate Wolfgang Petersen's involvement with the film.
Yes.
Or maybe a Lowenbrow. I don't know. One of the two.
Yeah.
Don't expect a revelation here.
No.
There's some goofy stuff. There's some silly stuff. But I think to see Clint legitimately get misty and have choking back tears, like honest tears, that was worth it.
Oh, definitely. So what branch are we going to swing to?
Let's do executive branch.
Executive. We're going to swing to the.
Let's do judiciary. We haven't done. You know what we could do? We talked about doing, because, I think it's around similar time. Did we talk about doing first Monday in October?
We did. We did. I was just looking to see if there was another Rene Russo movie we wanted to do.
And there might be a Rene Russo movie wherein somebody's a psychopath so that you can enjoy the film. I don't think there's any psychopaths in First Monday in October. I know you only like movies where there's degenerate psychopaths in lead roles, and I don't think that Walter Matthau plays one of those.
Why would you say that? What is Ransom?
Ransom is Mel Gibson, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't watch Mel Gibson movies anymore.
You done with him?
I'm kind of done with
you.
Mel.
You professionally, you're through with him professionally,
unless he wants to hire me for a movie, in which case I could be there.
You just don't like the anti-Semitism jokes quite so much anymore.
Not as much. I don't love those.
Yeah.
Although the rest of this cast is spectacular. The rest of the Ransom cast is pretty damn good. Gary Sinise, Delroy Lindo, Lily Taylor, Liev Schreiber, the greatest living actor of his generation. Donnie Wahlberg, Evan Handler.
Technically, Mel Gibson still makes it a good cast. It's just that he might be not a really wonderful human being.
There's somebody in the show in the movie who you might be able to get to join us.
You're trying to manipulate me again, and I won't have it.
Michael Gaston.
Oh, he won't talk to me. He doesn't want to talk to me.
He doesn't want to talk to you?
No, he's a big shot, professional man. He doesn't want to have. He doesn't need me calling him up and bugging him about any of this. No, I guess I could see if he'd want to.
You might want to come on. But but we don't have to watch Ransom. I don't think I ever saw Ransom. I don't know anything about it. Let's do First Monday in October. It's a comedy though, isn't it?
It is. So let's not do that.
No, we can do comedies. I have a Jill Clayburgh story.
You do? You worked with Jill Clayburgh.
Yeah.
Let's do first Monday in October.
All right, first Monday in October it is.
Is it available, for God's sake? That's something we should find out. First Monday. Oh, typing is interesting at this angle. Monday, 1981. Walter Matthau, Jill Clayburgh. It is available to see on a platform that you and I both have access to.
Awesome. There we go.
Excellent.
First Monday in October.
I'm excited. I really, really want to see this movie again. I'm quite excited.
All right. Who else is in it? Looking to see if there's anybody.
Barney Hughes.
Barney Hughes is in it. Is Jim Murtaugh in it? Jim Murtaugh should be in this movie. No, he's not in it. No Jim Murtaugh. Okay, we'll watch it anyway.
We can always change our mind. I don't think anybody's going to care.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Then please join us next week for first Monday in October.
Looking forward, man.
I'm going to see you the day after tomorrow for lunch.
That's right.
And maybe dinner too, depending on how lunch goes.
Depending how hungry we are.
Yeah. All right.
All right, man.
Talk to you later.
Be well.